Another thing I think about a lot when it comes to play and working as a behavior analyst is what exactly is our role in teaching play to our clients. So when I first started in the field, the way that play was taught was very much overly structured, overly task analyzed, sitting at a table. A lot of times I still see it happening this way, lots of imitation. But the idea, if we're really looking at why our clients, especially 2 and 3-year-olds back in the early 2000s, were being taught how to play, and I put play in quotes because if it's not enjoyable, it's not play, but they were being taught topographically how to engage in with different toys and different play materials, because the whole goal was to try to get them into a mainstream classroom and to normalize and be indistinguishable from their peers, right? So if that was the initial like driving force behind like why play is being included in intervention in the first place, then we really need to be thinking about, it's 2025, is this something we should actually be focusing on? And of course, like most things, it's not something that we can really say a solid yes or no type answer. There's a lot of factors that go into it. If you have a client who has a preference for playing, is like really highly motivated and interested in like various different things, and they're showing an interest, but they just don't know how to play with the toys, or like from like a creativity standpoint, maybe it's they're doing similar things over and over, and then they light up and have so much joy when you show them new things to do with the materials. Then in that particular situation, you're likely going to be spending some time helping your client navigate and learn these different, toys and materials that would be in their environment based on their age. However, if you have a client that is experiencing a lot of joy through their own way of playing, whatever that might look like, maybe it's lining up cars, maybe it's spinning around in circles, maybe it's taking things and watching them like flutter down like little pieces of paper or something. If that's, bringing the client joy and that's play, then that's play for them. And trying to take what is already bringing them joy and direct them into, oh, well, you need to actually use these particular materials because other kids your age are using these materials and you need to learn how to play with these, even if it doesn't bring you joy. Well, that's not really play. At that point, I call it leisure skills. So there might be a certain situation where maybe depending on the environment that your client's going into and having like safety and promoting independence and self-advocacy, we're helping them learn how to operate and use different materials that would be in those environments. But if they're not enjoying it, it's not play. So then that brings us into teaching through play and like, what does that look like? So if we're teaching through play, do we actually need to know these different play levels and be moving our client through these different play levels? And as far as I know, there's no research to say that we do. What I think it happened is one of two things. One, people are motivated to, again, try to have their clients, their research participants fit into the box, right? They're trying to just get normalized play happening. So that's one motivation. The other motivation is a lot of times people want structure, especially if they're doing research. So having these different play levels and being able to say, okay, this is where the client's play currently is. Let's, move them forward through to these higher levels of play. And as we do that, we're also teaching other skills. So that would be something similar to how like Jasper is set up. Again, I'm not familiar with any research that says it has to be done that way. For me personally, as a clinician, the way that I look at it is Jasper is super helpful in terms of understanding that there are different play levels and like wanting to know, okay, what is the type of play that my client prefers? What does that look like? Do they prefer physical play? Do they prefer sociodramatic play? Do they prefer doll as agent? Like when we do a free operant preference assessment and really look at how they're allocating their time in play, what does that look like? And knowing the different play levels can help me categorize that and just train people and teach people like, hey, this is a kid who likes this type of play. So when you're teaching through play, you're going to be focusing on these types of materials. I personally haven't in my 20 plus years of experience seen a situation where we would say, oh, this is their preferred type of play, and in order for them to learn any other skills, we need to get to these other levels of play. I have not yet seen that. If anyone is familiar with research that says like, oh, children aren't going to make progress unless they progress through these different levels of play, please share it with me, because I'd be really interested in learning more about that. So with teaching through play then, what I would say is important is that we're, again, identifying the client's preferred type of play, whatever that might look like and however that brings them joy. And then we're using the research with naturalistic interventions to help build routines and tie in whatever the targets are that we're working on to build those, independence and self-advocacy skills within that play routine, whatever that play routine might look like. So I hope this was a helpful discussion. Play is what brings us joy. I, again, am not familiar with any research that says it has to look a certain way. And I hope this gives you something to think about when you're deciding how to teach through play.